Check on money matters this morning. New robocall rules will help the FCC crack down on pesky overseas callers.
And President Trump escalates the trade war with China with brand new tariffs. Jane King joins us live from the NASDAQ with those stories and more in this morning's Money Matters Report. Morning, Jane.
Hi, Bruce and Melanie. Good morning. Yes, oil yesterday had its worst day in 4 years as President Trump said more tariffs will go into effect September 1st against China. Now, the worry is that tariffs will slow down the global economy and there won't be as big of a need for oil. Soybeans, by the way, closed at their lowest levels in over a month. Oil is recovering this morning, though. Well, the Federal Communications Commission voted on new rules to go after illegal robocallers overseas. Now, specifically, these new rules are aimed at closing some loopholes that prevented the agency from going after offenders that were based outside the U.S. or scammers who text message to defraud people. The FCC says it received more than 35,000 complaints about caller ID spoofing in the first half of this year. Well, with success comes scrutiny, and plant-based burgers are getting a close look by nutritionists. Now, the Wall Street Journal says some nutritionists point out they contain almost as many calories and more sodium than beef, and they're highly processed. Now, plant-based patties tend to contain roughly 5 times more sodium than beef, though the companies say consumers often salt their beef burgers. Impossible's burger had 9 grams of carbohydrates. Beyond's had 3 versus none in beef. On the other hand, meat alternatives had no cholesterol. Well, facial recognition has now entered the local watering hole. The system is called AI Bar. It was developed by a British data science company called DataSpark, and it uses facial recognition to identify when someone approaches the bar. Then it logs their face on a video screen, so it can estimate the wait time for a drink, and it can even charge you based on that facial recognition. Live from the NASDAQ, I'm Jane King. Back to you, Bruce and Melanie.
All right, Jane, have a great weekend.